Hello. Hi. My name is Lyle Fabian, and I'm from Cutlow-Deche First Nation, which is a community on the other side of Great Slave Lake. Born and raised in the river. My mother is Georgina Fabian. Her maiden name was Georgina Canadian. My grandmother was Bruno and Judith Canadian. And on my father's side, my grandfather was Edward Fabian and Nellie Fabian. And Nellie was a Lamalese, and her relatives were the Bavards from Toledo. And I can stand here all day and just keep on going. And also, I'm the nephew of our chief, Chief Roy Fabian. And Roy would, nod his head and say that, that sometimes I can be a pain. But I'd like to thank Stephanie for, the invitation to talk about, the governance and the economy, the Northern Governance and Economy Conference Pathways to Prosperity. Basically, the whole idea about my presentation today was about, I was hired back in 2006 with KFN to work on Cutlow-Deche First Nations community regulatory gas, to help look at the Mackenzie Gas project and making sure that KFN, had full participation in the Mackenzie Gas regulatory review process. And since then, my job titles have changed numerously, and one of my current job titles is maintaining the fiber infrastructure on the community. And so basically, the whole idea was that in 2007, when I started in 2006, in 2007, the band administration were using the local infrastructure, high-speed internet, DSL. And also, one thing I noticed that every single office, including the 5 administration offices outside of the band administration, all used individual workstations, and all those individual workstations had printers, and those printers, cost money, and all the individual workstations cost money, and plus all individual internet accounts cost money. So basically, they also hired a network administrator that cost the First Nation about $15,000 annually. And at the same time, our band expenses just in computer equipment and toners, all the other small expenses in regards to making sure your printer is up and going, our costs were running up into close to about $10,000. And at the same time, for phone lines, basic phone line for the reserve for the administration went in access about $54,000 a year. And so basically, we needed internet access, but that also cost us, on top of phone lines, $38,000 a year. So one of the things that I was, wanting to really take a look at was that there had to be a better way to cut costs and promote more efficiency in our community. And so one of the things that I decided to do was that every program manager had their own budget. And that budget was for computers, printers, toners, all the other project management that they needed to do in order for them to run their project successfully. And so in that budget, they also had budget set aside for high-speed internet and communications. And so basically, I asked them I convinced them to set aside some of those budgets and the costs for laptops and computers and internet access, to let me have access to those budgets, and I can help design a better system to bring down their costs in order for them to deliver their programs effectively in the community. And so basically the idea was, let's network all of our administration buildings together. And so basically I bought a few over-the-shelf equipment, Wi-Fi equipment, switches, and also routers, and disconnected every single building from their individual accounts, and we used one. And so basically we were able to share our Wi-Fi infrastructure over a 1 kilometer distance. We were able to share our costs and bring the costs down. And so basically our band expenses for printers and computer equipment went down, because it went from 10,000 to about 5,000, because we only needed one printer now, one printer for every building. And at the same time, the expenses over the year, for internet became in total for about 28,000. And so basically the band savings was about 35K just in internet service. And so the potential, so I took this idea and I was kind of running with it, and I thought, wouldn't this be a great idea for this new program called CanNor? So I took my little proposal and ran over to CanNor and said, knocked on Michael Corbett's door and said, hey, I got a great idea for you. So basically CanNor is the, is the Canadian Northern Economic Development Agency. And also I brought them, my economic potential plan for bringing down high-speed internet costs. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to train and educate people in Cisco certification, and also connect all the administration buildings from the previous year on a single, more robust and more secure infrastructure with a backup server. And so also, building this new infrastructure, I wanted to also design our own website and maintain our own website. Rather than us spending the money for an outside person to come in and cost us a lot of money, I also trained network and network certified, and he also takes care of our website. And so basically, we also introduced video conferencing capabilities. And also one of the main things that I convinced CanNor was that I wanted to do a feasibility study on fiber optic ownership. And so basically, we were very successful in that year implementing this project. And so then, CanNor was very excited about how successful the project was, and asked for another proposal. So then, based on the feasibility study of the fiber optic ownership. So basically, when I went for the next year, for the next funding phase, which was about 2011, I approached a company or an organization called Kuwait Career Development Corporation, and also to Earth Vision's environment, sorry, they're going to kill me, Earth Vision Systems. And so I asked these people that, we have I have a proposal on the table, and we want to build our own fiber optic infrastructure. And so myself, KCDC, and Earth Vision Systems, we work towards engineering and designing our own fiber optic infrastructure within the community. And also we developed a curriculum for the delivery of Cisco certification for our brand new adult learning center that was just built. And also we hired and trained 5 KFN members from the community from this project to learn how to run heavy-duty equipment, such as our Bobcat, and the band just happened to buy a Bobcat that year, and so we also bought a trencher. And so with that, we were able to link on our fiber infrastructure, and plus put on that infrastructure, we're still working on this one, is that we have 2 more servers that we have to put in place on top of the one that we do have. And so our estimated transfer speeds just on our fiber optic network is 1,000 megabytes a sec. That's 1 gigabyte a sec in comparison to what other organizations are currently getting, what everybody's getting in the Northwest Territories. So just a small diagram for what we've been working on. As you see there, that's the fiber. And those are the interconnects into those buildings. And right now we're just working on the bottom two. And so these are our buildings that currently have Wi-Fi internet service, and we share our internet with these current buildings through Wi-Fi. And hopefully in a couple of weeks we will turn the Wi-Fi off and redistribute the Wi-Fi radios elsewhere. And here's a couple of young guys from our reserve laying and working on the fiber. And there's our Bobcat, and that's the trench that we laid conduit and fiber. So basically, what is fiber? Fiber is light transmitted through glass, and also delivers delivers information 1,000 times faster and 100 times further than copper-based wire technology. There's no interference, and it delivers clear and a secure signal. Fiber optics maintains the cost of fiber optics maintenance costs are much lower over long runs than short runs. And also, in addition, telephone companies are steadily replacing their traditional phone lines with fiber optic cables. And in the future, every single major telephone company will be moved over to fiber. So right now what exists in the Northwest Territories is DSL, digital subscriber lines. The problem with DSL is that internet access is transmitted through digital data over copper lines, so it needs to be analog and then transmitted to digital and then transferred over fiber, or over copper. And so the DSL modem, the little back box in your home, does exactly that. And also you have still the use of your phone line, but at the same time, the internet speeds that you currently get on estimated really good values is about 1.5 to about 5 megabytes a sec. And download speeds are about 64 to about 640 kilobytes a sec download. And that's not very good in today's standards in comparison to places like China. The maximum distance for DSL is 4 kilometers. And at every 4 kilometers, there needs to be a unit called the exchanging equipment to recharge the signal and then send it off again. So the maximum distance is 4 kilometers. So fiber optics. So what can we do with fiber optics? Fiber optics cables carry internet, voice, video simultaneously over a single strand of fiber. Fiber is smaller than the strand of your hair. And it modulates light and transfers light from one end of the fiber to one location to another. And also, unlike copper wire DSL, optical cables do not suffer from interference from electricity. And also, speeds to the home can reach up to about 1 gigabyte a sec downstream and 1 gigabyte a sec upstream. Now, that is if, for businesses, this is probably one of the best things that they are looking towards in bandwidth, because right now it costs us in the north a lot of money just for basic high-speed internet. So what does that mean for KFN in our future? Health and wellness. Health and wellness is to deliver core healthcare services through video conferencing, such as counseling and connecting through other specialists. Reassessments for health issues off reserve and human resource connections to specialists. Increase better health services in our community and reduce travel costs. Link healthcare centers in smaller communities to major counterparts throughout the Northwest Territories or to the south. Education. To deliver better education for K-12 through online education, to mitigate inequalities in our education system and programs here on our reserve. And also online education for higher learning for people who do not want to leave our reserve and leave the community. And also high level of potential for technical skills and workers with networking. So, and also, I know that this one here is a bit, okay, so video conferencing. Video conferencing interviews the classrooms, rooms around areas with shortage with teachers in one area, or to share teachers at a 100-kilometer distance, meaning that if we have, one classroom or one program that one school can't afford, and it's quite popular, with KCDC. They share teachers, over 1,000 kilometers. One teacher, they have a shortage there, and they have another teacher. They transmit the lessons that is in one location to one location where they do not have that teacher. And so, there's a high potential for a lot of education, a lot of employment in this whole area. So what does that mean for us economically? Building our own data centers. Majority of the data centers are in the South or in the United States. Long-term training and education for KFN. Business opportunities for our community to become a local ISP, and ISP is an internet service provider. Lease our infrastructures to ISPs or local telcos. Lease our infrastructure to cell phone providers, and also better services to bring the costs down for our members. And the higher bandwidth for greater, and also with the higher bandwidth comes greater opportunities and services, and also increase the residential homes on reserve that provide large bandwidth, and new development in other businesses to be relocated on the reserve that provide large bandwidth. And also, one of the things that I really like is the fact that home-based businesses for our reserve, in the future, are able to look at next generation e-commerce, where the young people are very well versed in. I know that we are not, I know that I am not, but they can cut costs in regards to designing and building their own e-commerce website. But a lot of the businesses nowadays, we can't do that because our infrastructure is so slow. And I'll just show a little graph here. Of our programs and services. Manage both regional and community issues, and travel costs, and we reduce travel costs utilizing video conferencing capabilities. And to connect to our members who are part of KFN that reside throughout Canada, and we had a land claims meeting where we needed to have membership be involved in our land claims meeting, and we involved them via Skype. And so basically, I'll just go through the next slide. Here we go. Administration costs just for travel alone, I'm not showing anything else, just to give you an idea. For the past 5 years, our travel costs for administration was never under $120,000, other than 2007. When we start to implement new policies and implementing the video conferencing capabilities, you can see that in 2011, we were the first time under $40,000 in travel costs. And then the year after that, last year, we were under $20,000. And this year, I estimate that, that we're going to be saving a lot more money in travel costs by just utilizing video conferencing capabilities for negotiation sessions with Ottawa. And what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean for us? That means that our chief and council can spend more time in the community. Our chief and council and the people who work for us can spend more time in the community. And at the same time, we're looking at the health of our leadership. I hear about brain drain, and I hear about people being exhausted from being out on the road continuously. And right now, I think and Roy can admit to this, that a lot of our leadership are out in the bush right now, and they call me, when's the next negotiation session? So then they can plan one day to come out from the bush come back for an hour of federal negotiations sessions, and then pack up and leave and go back out in the bush. So that kind of scale in regards to, you know, that kind of stuff we can't measure. And yet I know that people are trying to measure, you know, that potential of, you know, what's the benefit. Right now, just looking at our network speeds comparison, ultra DSL, extreme cable, 3G, 4G satellite, and our KFN wireless currently right now, we are transmitting at 54 megabytes a second file sharing. And when we do light our fiber in the next short while, we are going to be at 1,000 megabytes a second. So what is, again, you know, for us, there is a lot of economic opportunity just owning your own fiber optic infrastructures. So in 2013, I'm hoping that we will be building right off the reserve next year into Northwest Tel's fiber optic infrastructure that just runs right off the reserve. And for us right now, the current bottleneck we have is the ADSL infrastructure that exists on the reserve. And so we're hoping to get off that DSL copper-based infrastructure because it's inefficient, it's not fast enough, and the services that we want to bring in really depend on true high-speed broadband internet. So future, little legend right there. So KFN, that's where we are on that side of the lake. Currently, the yellow is the Alberta SuperNet. Alberta SuperNet has built the fiber optic infrastructure that currently they lease to incumbents throughout Alberta, and they do not compete. And yet, they are probably one of the most profitable companies in the world now. They're taking their same public ownership infrastructure and applying it in other areas of the world. And currently, this what exists in the Northwest Territories, which is owned by one company, and we all know who that is, so I don't need to elaborate on that. But what's the future for us as KFN? I'm hoping that in the future that people would have a choice, because right now, through the CRTC decision of December of last year, the CRTC made a decision that the monopoly in the Northwest Territories is no longer existent because it stifles growth, it stifles competition, and so therefore we are open to competition. So what does that mean for Aboriginal people? What does it mean for us? The red, that's our goal, is that one day that we do want to connect into Alberta SuperNet in order to bring an option to the north, to have other people look towards us to provide true broadband high-speed internet. And so what does that mean for everybody? What's the economic future for the Northwest Territories? There is the existing fiber infrastructure. There is all the Daycho communities. Now, can you imagine all those Daycho communities owning their own fiber community optic infrastructures and the interconnects between them? And right now, there is the other regions. And the Mackenzie Valley Fiber Link project by the GNWT is going to invest in the near future what you see there, which is about $50 million. And that's what they're going to be investing in the future in the very next short while. So what I don't get is that all this information is flying under the radar, and people in Toledo, Delaney, Inuvik, Sigachik, Kovo, Wrigley, you know, what I'm afraid of is that this is all going to happen and no one's going to be ready. It's almost kind of like the whole Mackenzie Gas project thing. It's, you know, everybody's going to, you know, be up in arms, and really we can own the infrastructure today. I believe that the infrastructure and the communication backbone of the Northwest Territories depends on fiber optics. And that fiber optics backbone should be owned by the Aboriginal people who live and reside here in the Northwest Territories. Why? Because there is a huge economic gain in ownership of that infrastructure. And I'll just give you a few numbers here.
Quickly, because we're running out of time.
Okay. Really quickly, I'll give you a few numbers here. Great Britain has invested $2.5 billion in fiber. U.S. has earmarked $7.2 billion. France, $2 billion. China, $22 billion. And South Korea, $152 billion to develop both ICT industry and their fiber to the home project. Singapore, $700 million to build a nationwide fiber to the home network. So what do they know that we don't? You know, right now, you know, I would like you to encourage you to look at that. You know, what does this mean? You know, for us, I understand what does that mean for KFN. It means a long-term viable green technology and a long-term economic gain, because really the Chinese realized that, you know, in one of their papers was that they wanted to connect all their natural resources on one fiber infrastructure. And they weren't talking about their companies and their manufacturing companies, they were talking about their people. Natural, recurring, natural resources that would never run out. And so they're investing in their own people through fiber optic infrastructures. Thank you, and that's my presentation.